If you're a company that's only giving a handbook, is that handbook on the job site or is it back in the office? I just think it is availability to the knowledge that is key for getting that knowledge used.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Schluter Sales Rep Chris Hossler. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding Podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Patrick. I appreciate you having me.
Can you first please tell me about the products that are made by Schluter and what you do for the company?
Certainly. Schluter Systems is a product line of ceramic tile and stone setting products. So if you can think of all the products that go into creating quality assemblies, such as underlayment, backers, heated systems, waterproof showers, so forth. We are the industry leader within that within that product line. What I do for the company, I am a local territory manager. My territory is Western Pennsylvania, so from all Pennsylvania borders and over to, give or take, the Lancaster area. We split the state. As a territory manager, I cover and handle the purchases through our distribution as well as our dealer network. We do a lot of training. Some people call us sales reps. At Schluter Systems, we look at ourselves much more like teachers or mentors to the system.
And were you a tile setter before coming to Schluter?
Well, Patrick, I have been in the tile or floor covering industry since I graduated high school, so that's a little while ago. At the end of the day, in '85, when I left high school, I worked for a flooring company. And at that point, I went in as a helper. Basically, I helped the tradesmen, the tile setters out there. After that, I was obviously trained to be an installer, so I did hardwood, carpet, ceramic tile work, showers, many different things. And also, then later in that time frame, I became the installation manager. I did that for approximately 10 years, and then I was the estimator for that company in the latter years that I worked there. I worked for that company a total of 30 years before being picked up by Schluter Systems.
Wow. So were you doing like residential work or commercial work? Was it a mix?
Patrick, generally speaking, my forte is residential remodel. We got involved with some very small commercial projects, but at that point in time, we could keep ourselves obviously very busy with the residential remodel as well as new builder work.
You touched on it earlier, Chris, but we were introduced because a podcast listener was impressed with the training and the responsiveness of your company. Can you please talk about the company ethic at Schluter that helps you help your customers have success?
Absolutely. Patrick, we're very strong on education, and I know that may seem slightly different for the trades or the products that we're involved with, but at Schluter Systems, they have always, and when I say that, meaning what got me involved with this company back in '07 were challenges that I was able to go to a workshop. So I don't want to get off topic, but it is something where the way that we help our customers is we create workshops. Those workshops can take as many as 60 guests, and those are hands-on 2-day events. So that is one of our training abilities.
So you guys actually, as I understand it, you rent a banquet room in a hotel, and you have your training there, and bring the food and education to the troops.
That is correct. We do a very, very nice venue. Yes, it is 2 days of education. We ask them to give basically 2 days of their work week, a Wednesday and a Thursday. At that point, we take care of hosting these things in a very nice hotel so that we can have that large session. We need to do something where people can, one, see a PowerPoint, but also have a room large enough where we can set up approximately 16 shower mock-ups that they will build themselves in the following days.
What does the hotel say when you start mixing up mortar in their banquet room?
Well, Trust me, it gets a little bit of attention, but we are very well known for doing this. And I will tell you, Patrick, and I don't want to jinx myself, but in the 7 years that I have been with Schluter Systems, we have never paid to take care of any cleaning in a hotel. So
You're ruined now, Chris.
there is certainly a process that's involved with that, but usually the staff is impressed on Thursday when we clean up and we basically pull up the plastic and it looks like we were not even in the room.
So you actually build stud walls and put your I don't know, how do you do the floor and of the shower unit?
Well, we basically have what are called pods, and those pods are things that are pre-built and go from one location to the next. So I store those, and we go in and we assemble them. So the wall studding is there, the base plates are there. And then we have a complete education department at Schluter Systems that creates either part 1, part 2, ROD, or PFG, other types of workshops that we have. And
can you tell me what those things stand for, please?
Sure. ROD is Retail One Day, and PFG is Partnering for Growth. Two totally different types of venues, but Patrick, what it does for us is, what I wanted to highlight is our education department. They are the ones that not only create the flyers, but keep the list of attendees, as well as cut and source all of the products for us out in the field. So it is a combined system that creates all of these, wonderful workshops that we do. There's a lot of people behind the scenes to make this happen.
So your company, I would say, pioneered the idea of a waterproof membrane that you tile onto, and it's meant to make the tile shower waterproof. Why do you think that's better than the surface-applied membranes, which to me seem easier to install?
Well, in a lot of things in this world, you look at things that are easy and there's questions to them. I mean, Patrick, from my belief and from Schluter Systems' standpoint, a membrane that is applied to the wall, there's no question that we're waterproof. It's waterproof on the roll. Now all I got to do is bond it to the wall. When I am doing things where they are a liquid style of membrane, you are putting multiple coats to achieve what that manufacturer asks for. There is sometimes the challenge. Are the proper tools in place to achieve that thickness? And or do the installers truly know and understand what they are doing? So, things I hear in the field, oh, well, I just put 2 coats on it and move on. Okay. All I know is that I cover the wall with an orange membrane and do my banding around the perimeters, and I am watertight every time. Plus, I can begin starting my installation as soon as that membrane is on the wall. No wait time.
You don't have to wait for the mortar that bonds the membrane to the wall to set before you can start setting tile?
No, sir. The way that our system works is our membrane has a fleece on the back side of it. No different. When I say our membrane, our Curdy membrane, the waterproofing product, so does our Ditra and our Ditra Heat. At the end of the day, when we bond those into the thin set, at that point, yes, we can traffic on them and we can begin working on top of them. With any of our products, there is not a wait time. Now, that being said, one must be slightly careful, when doing this. So again, for myself, many of us, as you start to work ahead, so to speak, or gain time, there's oftentimes little things that you must do that just take a little additional steps. So yes, there is some carefulness that has to be done, but short of that, there's no reason why we can't set tile today.
One of the things that's always impressed me about your shower systems is the floor drain, and it sounds silly to someone who's not familiar with it. Can you explain how that works? Because I think it's pretty smart.
Well, our floor drain, and what I'm speaking of is the, quote, Curdy shower drain. That is a PVC or ABS flange. Could also be in stainless steel, but generally speaking, ABS or PVC. The challenge that we had was, how do we create a waterproof connection at the drain?
The challenge is getting the transition from the waterproofing to the drain. So if it's weeping, you need to be able to get it out of the shower pan so it doesn't make a science experiment, right?
That is correct. So, for our system, we are topical waterproofing. All moisture that goes through the tile and grout will go into the mortar bed and work its way to the drain on top of the shower tray or on top of the curtain. So that being said, our challenge was creating a drain system that could receive the curtain membrane. So what we needed to do was have a drain made that had a fleece put onto the drain itself. That was a process that took Mr. Schluter a number of years to accomplish. But once we had that accomplished, we've not changed it since because it is something that works just fine.
And it has some adjustability for your tile layout, which is another cool aspect of it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Our drain will adjust a half of an inch within the tray itself. And then our drain grate will also adjust a half of an inch to help a tile setter not only line the plumbing up in the first half of an inch, so to speak, but in the drain grate itself, that helps him to get his tile layout square.
One of the things that you guys recommended early on was to use Dryset mortars, and the rationale for using Dryset was so it would dry behind what is a waterproof membrane, right, or decoupling membrane, and we'll get into more of what decoupling is in a little bit here, but tile setters don't like Dryset mortars because additives make mortar work better. Are you still recommending Dryset mortars for applying these products?
Well, this will be a bit of a lengthy answer to that question. I mean, yes, we are. So I want to understand Dryset mortars are better known as an unmodified thin set. Unmodified thin sets are what we wish to set tile to our Curdy or Ditra systems, simply because they are waterproof membranes. And Patrick, the way that this works, put it in layman's terms, if you cover something with moisture with a piece of plastic, it takes a very long time to dry. So in this case, we're truly covering the plastic with a mortar and then putting maybe such as a porcelain tile on top. When you do that, the only area that that mortar can dry is from around the perimeter of that tile. Unfortunately, if we go back in time, the modified thin sets that were on the market were all latex based and they take air to dry. That is why we made the statements that we want to go to a unmodified thin set because unmodified dries chemically, just like concrete. And if we think of possibly pouring concrete for bridge abutments or bridge supports underwater, it still dries underwater. So there again, using an unmodified thin set on top of Ditra or to do the shower system is recommended when you're using either our unmodified or a competitor's unmodified thin set. Now, Patrick, I want to touch on Ditra because Ditra is an area where a modified thin set can be used to bond it to a wooden deck.
Chris, do you mind telling folks what Ditra is versus Curdy, the product we've been talking about most?
Sure. Curdy membrane is waterproof membrane for shower applications. It's an 8 mil thickness. Ditra is an uncoupling membrane that we use to support our tile assemblies in the field, or such as floor work, kitchens, bathrooms, family rooms, whatever it may be. Even concrete work can be covered with Ditra. It is an 1/8 of an inch thick membrane that has movement abilities and or uncoupling abilities. So two totally different products.
Can you tell folks why you might want the tile to be uncoupled from its substrate?
100%. When you think of how a house moves, and all structures in this world move, so again, if you look at wood versus ceramic tile assemblies, there is sometimes up to 10 times the amount of movement based on moisture, based on humidity issues that will happen differently between the plywood and the tile assembly. So to me, when I look at trying to fasten something to my house, and then when I say fasten mechanically, and then bond tile to it, that's going to give me difficulty or possibility thereof if the structure moves. Our view is very different. We take thin set mortar and bond the Ditra to the deck of the home. No mechanical fastening. At that point, when that deck needs to move, there is an open rib structure that is within the Ditra membrane that can move along with that expansion and contraction of the plywood. therefore not damaging or noticing that movement in the tile assembly.
In many cases, commercial work actually has soft joints, right, every so often to accommodate this movement. Can you eliminate those in some cases with an decoupling membrane?
Well, yes and no. It's not that we can eliminate them, but what we can do on a saw cut, and must understand a saw cut is different than a structural movement joint. But in a saw cut application, there we could run the Ditra right over top of the saw cut and putting the movement joint in my tile assembly at the end of the next tile row. Therefore, not noticing the cut tile because there isn't any. You just look at a field of tile, but there is a movement joint in that area. So the industry tells us what the movement joints need to be. And at the end of the day, we just have a system that helps the installer to honor them and do his job virtually unnoticed.
That's the thing about good tile work is if it's done correctly, it doesn't attract attention to itself. Am I right?
That is so true, but we all recognize those jobs that aren't done so well.
I want to talk about that in a little bit because, I'm sure you notice tile everywhere you go. So you guys also make these little metal trim pieces meant to finish inside, outside corners. I'm guessing other applications as well. Can you talk a little bit about what those pieces are called and what they're used for?
Absolutely. We have multiple different profiles. And if I start with our floor profile line, we have a product called Sheen. Sheen is simply an L angle that protects the raw edge of tile. This was Mr. Schluter's very first invention. The end of the day, what it is a piece of aluminum bent in an L shape that protects that edge of tile from things like rolling traffic. Also, it can separate your tile assembly from maybe the rest of the job. Or if you put one, say, at a doorway, it separates it from the door rather than caulking it to the door. We also make a product called the Reno products. Reno are our reducer line. So we can reduce down from the tile height, which is often 1/2 of an inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch, and reducing down to 1/8 of an inch. We can do some of those that are handicap available as well. Also within the floor line would be stair noses and also products for movement joints called Dial-X profiles. We make Dial-X profiles for movement of tile assemblies that will look just like a tile grout joint, possibly even hiding completely from the assembly. We also make some that are stainless steel and or chrome with removable pieces that you see many times used commercially. The bonus there is in a commercial environment when they come in and every several years and redo the floors, polish them up, they can pull the strips out, replace the strips, giving it that brand new appearance. And Patrick, now I go into wall profiles. Within wall profiles, there are things sort of get much, much bigger because as a general statement, we have Rondac, which is a rounded over profile, very similar to what most people know as a bullnose tile.
And it eliminates bullnose tile, right? It's yes. The finished edge that would be a bullnose.
That is correct. And Patrick, this is something that's very strong for me because bullnose tile typically come in sizes such as 3x9s, 3x12s. So when you put bullnose on, you create framework in your tile assembly. They're not always the same size as the field tile. So when you use a Rondac profile, you just run your field tile right to the end to that Rondac, much cleaner, crisper look. Also, we make a product called Jolly, which is an L bracket or L angle for wall treatments. We also do something called Quadac. Quadac is a finished square look. Many people find it very appealing. I find it a little easier possibly to work with. And that gives you some idea of the profiles that we have. But I mean, Patrick, it is a very, very large line for us.
So tile setters are not carpenters, are not metal workers. How do you cut this stuff? How do you work with it? Do tile setters have the tools to work with this material?
Well, most of the time, simply a hacksaw and a miter box. Easy way to do it. We also make cutting blades for grinders. Some guys will use a bandsaw that is battery operated. So again, there's many different ways to cut it. Tin snips can work very, very well also. And we also do make PVC profiles, so those can be cut with snips or shears as well.
So what are the most common problems with tile that you get called upon? Because I'm guessing in addition to your training, when something goes wrong, you're also getting a call. What mistakes are people making out there?
Well, many times you see people not necessarily making an error with our system. It's making an error not creating or using a system where they're doing a hodgepodge. If I look at the shower situations, many times we hear of multiple products being used in conjunction with one another. The challenge with that, Patrick, is they're never designed to work in conjunction with each other. We at Schluter Systems have entire system company. So all of our products can work together with each other. So shower systems can go into Ditra and so forth. But at the end of the day, when you utilize an entire system, now you have a warrantable system. So again, there's probably the biggest challenge that I see, or the fact of guys simply not getting enough coverage of thin set to their tile. That is
90%, right?
80% on a flat or dry area and 95% in a shower application.
Can you tell folks why that's so important?
Well, sure. If you leave cavities, meaning trowel marks, in your system, let's just use a shower system as the application. As that moisture enters the wall and works its way down the wall, when you have a full bed of thin set behind that tile, it basically works through very slowly to get down to the bottom. If indeed you get to a tile where the mortar was not collapsed and now there's trowel marks, now it holds that moisture in those open cavities. That can become challenges for many different things, such as discolored grout because they're moisture sensitive and holding the moisture, or obviously they can turn, into a different shade or a different color, which highlights the customer that there's something wrong. So, Patrick, yes, coverage can be a huge situation, and not just for Schluter, but in tile setting as a general statement.
And the only way to know if you're getting it right is to pull tiles off periodically. Am I right?
Well, to do the right processes, one, many people think they know how to set tile, but we learn that they just really don't. There is National Tile Council of North America that makes the guidelines for these things. We also show them. But, we even take it as far as showing coverage and how to obtain coverage in our workshops. We probably spend an hour on it, and it's not even a Schluter-oriented subject. Mm-hmm. But it's something that, look, we notice people need the education, so we feel strongly about it.
What do you see out in the world that drives you absolutely crazy with regard to tile work? I talk to folks often about, seeing the quality of work related to their trades and the things they notice. What do you see out there that drives you bananas?
Really, I think the thing that gets me the very most are guys that are stuck utilizing these processes that they have used for 30 years. Patrick, I shared with you early on, I've been around floor covering for a little while, and nothing has stayed the same. This is no different than any other trade. You either change with what is happening, or you sort of get run over and you're behind the times. I have many people that feel that, hey, I've done these showers this way for 20, 30 years. It must be okay. Okay, but my questions are, do you have processes in line to do this? Do you have the right products? Is it warrantable when you're done? That usually stops the conversation pretty quickly. Mm. And we have customers today that are much more savvy. I mean, Patrick.
You mean the homeowners, the client?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Patrick, I'm not certain how long you've had this podcast, but you're a good example. You bring knowledge to the community. So at the end of the day, years ago, we didn't have these things. You learned by the person that was teaching you the trade. No different for me, but fortunately for myself, I was taught by some really good people that were also looking at what was coming. So again, I think if you're asking me what drives me the most nuts, it's guys that just, this is the way I've always done it. I can't tell you how often we hear that statement. And in some cases, that's great, but in many cases, that just means they've stopped learning. And let's face it, there are great new products and launches on a daily or monthly basis for sure.
It surprises me that so many building products companies do a poor job of providing good instructions and training. It would seem like it's in everyone's best interest to provide the best possible instruction to the people who are using your products. I've been told that if you provide good instructions, you're on the hook as a company if something goes wrong and the people follow the instruction. How do you respond to that?
Well, Patrick, I've got to be honest, I really don't like the wordage there. But at the end of the day, as a do-it-yourselfer, as a person that does many things for himself around his home, yes, I try to reach out and learn the items that I'm buying. And sometimes I see the roadblocks and I'm left to just simply go to YouTube and hopefully I can find somebody there that is reputable. We view that totally different. I mean, as you understand our company, not only in paper form, but videos, as well as all the education that we do for the public. No different than I'm doing a demo tomorrow night at a local distributor. And we expect to see 50 people there tomorrow evening. At the end of the day, we feel differently and that you've got to get the proper information to people if they're trying to get your product to be understood and, most importantly, installed correctly.
I think you'd agree that most building products are fine. It's the installation that goes sideways most often, right?
Absolutely. And again, I feel that it goes sideways because if you're a company that's only giving, say, a handbook, well, okay, is that handbook on the job site or is it back in the office? There's a challenge. You've got to have things in place we have an app, so you can go to our app and bring up videos while you're out in that new construction site. You can bring up our handbooks. I just think it is availability to the knowledge that is key for getting that knowledge used.
Do you still get calls from your distributors who say, I have so-and-so here at the counter, he has a question. Do you still find that kind of interaction with customers?
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually going to one this afternoon. So I received a phone call. It goes back a week or so, but this gentleman's not far from my home, and he's doing his first Ditra Heat system. Well, it just happens to be that I had this on my plate for this morning, but I had some free time this afternoon, so I told him that I would run up to the job site and help him to go through this first Ditra Heat installation.
That's cool. Do you want to talk about that system a little bit? I'm not really familiar with it, except it uses electric heating cables, right, in the mat for warm floors.
Correct. We have something called Ditra Heat. Ditra Heat is a product we designed a number of years back that is a floor warming system. Ditra Heat can be utilized, obviously, in ceramic tile. It can also be utilized underneath things such as vinyl tiles, vinyl planking, as well as engineered hardwoods. But if we speak of ceramic tile, it has an uncoupling membrane, just like our Ditra, but it's a very different look to it. That look is different because we need to click or snap in the cables into the top of it. So we give you a run of wire, a loose cable, so to speak, and the installer clicks it into the mat, creating either 3-puck spacing or a 2-3-2 spacing throughout the job. And we mortar over top of that, install the ceramic tile, and that warms up the floor. That comes in either a 120-volt system or a 240-volt system. Also, it can be installed in a shower application. Now, again, want to be very clear, Ditra Heat is an interior heating system only. Yes, we can do 3-season rooms, but it is not something to be used on exterior sidewalks for ice melt or anything like that. It's basically creature comfort. If we
can I guess someone's tried that is why you have to say that?
Well, I try to be clear because here in Pennsylvania, I field that question fairly often. Much like you up in Connecticut, I'm sure, let's face it, I don't really love to shovel snow off my sidewalk. So if I could have something to melt it off, that could be a good idea, but we're just not that company.
So can you talk about your own house? You got tile everywhere. Do you enjoy working on it?
I do. I live in a 1951 build. It is a home my wife and I purchased almost 30 years ago now. But yes, we have renovated, did an addition out the back of the home, which tile work would have been a master bathroom floor as well as shower. We also have a ceramic tile kitchen floor with the new remodel of the kitchen. Most recent tile work that I did was my family room area. Unfortunately, my home is in an area where we have a very large limestone bed. So that being said, when we get huge amounts of water, meaning 8-9 inches in a 24-hour period of time, the ground doesn't handle it very, very well. I say that because over the last 10 years, I've had some water issues in my basement. So the last thing that I did is removed carpet for the last time, and I put in ceramic tile planks with Ditra Heat. So at this point, I haven't had any challenges, and I'm not hoping to have any more challenges. But at the end of the day, if I do, I have a floor system there that can handle the moisture. And simply, I am going to, evacuate all the moisture, turn it on, and dry things back out again.
I hope that is the last time you have to deal with that, because it is no fun. I can tell from personal experience.
Yeah, it is zero fun. And like I said, I don't live in a prone area, but unfortunately, with some of the development around me, I guess it has changed a few things.
So are you a native Western Pennsylvanian?
I truly am born and raised in Lebanon County, which is about the middle of the state, very close to Lancaster or the Hershey area. I'm only about 6 miles from Hershey's where I live.
I grew up in Pittsburgh area.
Okay.
Yeah. So who are some of your clients in the Western Pennsylvania area that I might know of?
Well, if I look at Pittsburgh, I would have Fierce Distributing. There is Fishman Flooring out there. Also have Best Tile. There's some large stores called Russmer Flooring, as well as Molyneux Flooring. Again, we're virtually within almost every dealer that is in the area.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Chris. Is there anything you want to ask or tell our audience before we part company?
Patrick, just one other thing I'd like to say about Schluter Systems. Schluter Systems, for me, has been a great company to get the company that I worked for prior involved with. But then I had a lot of respect for not only the people at this company, but the way in which they did things. And now being a part of the company is a true pleasure for me. It is a lot of fun to do the job that I do. I know it's not always that people can say they go to work and have fun, but for the most part here at Schluter, we do have a lot of fun. And
Isn't that better than not having fun?
It is in my book, brother. And I also believe that we have, without a doubt, the best company and the best systems of products for the tile setting installations out there.
Chris, how does somebody learn about an upcoming training session that the Schluter would be offering in the area?
I'm very glad that you asked that. Simply, you can go to schluter.com, touch on the education key, prompts will come up. You'll have to work yourself through a map. For instance, a map will come up of the East Coast. You can touch the state of Pennsylvania. Currently, in the state of Pennsylvania right now, you will see 4 workshops. There are 2 retail one-days, and then there are 2 part ones. One in the Harrisburg area and one out in that Pittsburgh market. So that is the simplest way, or by all means, they could just reach out to Schluter Systems as well, and they would give you my information, and they could reach me directly. But the simplest thing to do is go to our education key and just work your way through the prompts and sign right up.
And the website is schluter.com, if I'm correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Chris, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
Patrick, it's been a pleasure for me as well, and I wish you and all your listeners a great day.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thanks to Chris Hossler for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Do some tile.
Take care.